So let me start with Sagar M. He is a mechanical engineering graduate from VTU. He passed his FRM exams in 2019 and then went on to tackle the CQF in 2020. So I am going to have a follow-up question regarding that. Thank you. He has over 4 years of experience working for a global bank and reinsurance company. His roles tended to be focused on market and credit risk management, analytics, and reporting areas. He's also worked on data science, AI, and ML applications to capture financial risk and automation projects. Sunny Kisarwani has a bachelor's degree in finance from the University of Mumbai, and he passed his FRM in 2019 as well. Prior to passing the FRM, Sunny worked in the operations department of an investment bank. Now he works on the counterparty credit risk team and is responsible for certification of exposure at default variations daily. Vish Iyer, coming to us from Sydney today, is a seasoned corporate finance professional with more than 15 years of hands-on experience across business strategy, financial planning analysis, stress testing, capital planning. He's currently working with Citi Australia and has worked in the past with Deutsche Bank and JP Morgan in financial controller roles. Vish is a CPA Australia member, a certified FRM and FMVA, and holds his MBA from NMIMS University in Mumbai. So again, thank you, gentlemen, and thank you for joining me today. I'll just get rid of my slides there. And again, I thank you all so much for joining me today. Perhaps we could talk a little bit about how you became involved in risk management. Whether, did you start somewhere else and end up in risk management? Did you always have a burning desire to work in risk management? I'll start with Sagar for this one.
Yeah. Thanks, Lisa. So my journey started right after my graduation. So I started with a bank, local bank in India, as a credit analyst. So soon I discovered my interest in risk management. To start with, initially it was a very fancy word for me. I had no idea at all. So that's when it all started. So I started researching more on this. And when I understood a subject more, I kind of realized my interest lies in this, and this is where I should grow. So that's when I researched further and found out about FRM as well. So this is where my journey started. So yeah, I should say start from right from the start of my career, I was more into risk management, and that's where I've been from the past 4.5 years now. Yeah.
Oops. Thank you. Sunny, how about you?
Yeah, am I audible? Clear? Okay, yeah. So I did not think about that I will be end up in risk management at first, actually. So I have spent around 2.5 years in operations department of buy side firm, State Center. Okay. So after I got out of and got into banking industry, I got to know that people are upskilling. Okay, and the industry is very very moving forward. Okay, so that's why I thought I should also get into that I should also upskill my career, whether I should go for MBA or other courses. Then I found out about from my colleagues that everybody is doing FRM. So when I got into private coaching, I got introduced to the syllabus. Then I directly fell in love with the syllabus, actually, the statistics, the analytics part, and the products I work with. So it was very great. And that's when I thought that what I want to do in my life, actually. So that's how I got into, from operations to risk management.
Okay, thank you. Vish, what about you? You seem to have a very broad range of experience. Tell me a little bit about your journey.
Sure. So, I've been continuing upgrading myself. Every 2-3 years, I've been doing something or the other in terms of making sure that I upgrade and update myself. Of course, after CPA, I've been, and of course, career in finance for almost like 15 years. It was something which the industry is changing, becoming more risk centric. Of course, even in finance, the work what I do is more of forward-looking nature. So risk management as such is more forward-looking than of course what happened. So I think back 2 years back when I actually, decided that this is what I want to do, it was purely based on the content, and of course the introduction of liquidity risk in the entire FRM curriculum, that I found, very value added and relevant to my, desire, my skill sets, as well as, becoming industry relevant. So I think that was my driving force for getting into, doing FRM along with, my previous academics. Yeah, and it's the sheer content and sheer relevance which, of course, motivated me to, pursue this career. So this particular certification, and of course, I think it has got very good recognition across the globe. So the global reach, and of course, my employers have also, we have a network within the organization of FRM. So spoke to a couple of folks, and understood what's the content is, and they are people who have graduated back in 2010, 2012, and then somebody who graduated in 2008, 17, 18. So got a very, very wide group, and all were quite positive as such. So yeah, those were the forces of me getting into FRM.
Thank you, Vish. Now, while I have you, I'll just hold on to you for just a second. I feel that our audience may be full of students looking at different types of education. And actually, all of you have this. You all have degrees, as well as postgraduate work and certifications. Can you tell the audience a little bit about, what the difference is among these things, at least from your experience, what the difference between, pursuing your degree versus, pursuing a particular designation, what that meant to you, or what the differences are?
I think traditional academics focuses more on the bookish knowledge, I would say, uh, and then the practical relevance of that at times. And I'm being direct, because at some certifications you will find the practical relevance is not there. What I found really interesting in FRM is the applicability part, and as we learn, when you go on to each chapters within the GARP textbook, you will actually feel the industry relevance of that, and the testability of each of that during the 4 hour test, the exam, that's actually tests your practical understanding about that. So it's more application oriented. So that's where I would say, and I'm stressing and emphasizing relevance more and more, and people will hear this term a lot, because if I want to describe FRM certification in one word, I will say it is the industry relevance, or two words, for example. So it's industry relevance. So that's exactly the main difference between an MBA or a postgraduate degree versus something which is FRM, which is pretty technical. At the same time, it's very, very foundational, and it actually tests your foundations, how fundamental concepts of each of these types of risks, and quantitative in part one, it's pretty, the entire part one and part two, it's the entire sequence is very, very designed very thoughtfully.
Thank you. Sagar, I told you I was going to come back to this. You after the FRM, pursued the CQF. Can you talk a little bit about the differences among designations, and why you would choose, why you chose your particular path?
Okay, so when I started with FRM, what I could see was like Vish mentioned, I could not find any other course or a designation which was comparable anywhere near to FRM, right? From the industry relevance and the kind of practical knowledge that we get. So that is where I think FRM stands out. Uh, when you ask me to compare this with CQF, I don't know. In many aspects, you do get to see a kind of intersection between these courses. But one thing which was a bit of data science aspect. I found it more, in the CQF, which I think probably in future FRM also can adopt and go forward with that, because I'm seeing a lot of data science, and especially the AI and machine learning coming into the risk, and we are dealing with a very, very big data. So that's really important nowadays, and also the technological skills are very, very important. So that's where I find a bit of differences there.
I feel like our exam development team might have heard you, because we do have in our current issues of financial risk management, we do have sections on AI and machine learning for this year's curriculum, which is, again, it touches on what Vish had to say about industry relevance. I don't know, have any of you participated in our global practice analysis? We survey people working in risk management who and ask them about the knowledge points, things you want people to know, people that start in industry. So perhaps if we haven't tagged you for this, we'll find you next year when we do our next survey. Thank you. Sunny, I wanted to ask you, where you were already working when you sat for the FRM?
Yeah, I was already working. So after the graduation, I already spent almost 2.5 years in one organization. Again, in new investment bank I joined. Then I spent around 6 months. So I was, it was definitely 4 years of gap after my studying. Okay, so yeah.
Well, that's interesting, because that's why I wanted to ask you, how was preparing for the exam and working? I mean, was it difficult? How much time would you say you spent?
Yeah. The only reason I have chose to do the FRM that time, because going for an MBA and it will have to do the full time working, right? And there was a lot of opportunity loss as well. So I wanted something that I can pursue along with my job as well. Okay. So it was difficult, yeah, at first, because this was my new job in the banking area. Okay, and it was difficult because I was very new to the your syllabus. Okay, and it took me around 1.5 months to get into student mode. When you can sit and stretch and study. Okay, so later on it became very easy, because I really like the syllabus. I like the syllabus very much, about the products and everything, the statistics part and everything. So at some point in time, I found it doable. Okay, I can crack this. So yeah, so I got that confidence.
Another
Yeah.
a follow-up question for you,
Okay.
Sunny, since I have you.
Yeah.
One of the points behind the presentation, we're looking at developing a career in risk management. What kind of skills would you recommend students today, for someone, perhaps an entry-level hire within your own department, what kind of skills would you be looking
So
for someone that, would be looking to, to work for you?
okay. So primarily, I'll recommend the Python and the SQL. Okay. If you have a good basic knowledge of the Python and SQL is still sufficient, because in the big banks, okay, many of the times the data is in databases, okay, and you'll have to retrieve the data to do the analysis. Okay. For that, SQL is more important. Okay. And previously, the many models were built on the VBA, Excel VBA. So if it was not 2022, I would have recommended the Excel VBA. But now many organizations are shifting towards the Python. So it is kind of a replacement for that. So it's better to learn what is industry going to implement in the future.
Okay. Sagar, what about you? Are there any particular skills that you think, within your group that you would be looking at for early entry hires?
Yeah, one aspect I would be looking would be product knowledge, because that is very much important. Having knowledge on various products, especially in risk management, derivatives plays a very important role. So having a good understanding about product is one aspect. The other aspect would be to have risk knowledge, the risk metrics knowledge specifically, and understanding the basic mathematics, and also probability and statistics will play an important role when it comes to risk modeling. So like Sunny mentioned, technology skill is also playing a bigger role here. When we see people getting hired, we kind of give at least half a weightage to technology skills that they come up with. So Python, R, and SQL are really, really important to do any risk analytics, modeling, or any such things, right? So yeah, these are the skills I would say is must.
Vish, what about you? Do you have any suggestions for the audience on skills
Yes.
they
So to
should be
add,
looking to develop for your?
Yeah, to add to Sagar and Sunny's point on data analytics, I will say yes, data analytics is important. So, the big data, getting that into a reviewable uh, format, that helps through these tools of R and Python and SQL. To that, I would more add, which is more relevant to areas of ours, which is more on strategy, business planning, stress testing, is more on data visualization. So things like Tableau, Power BI is another technical tool which is very hands-on in Excel. And then, of course, some organizations use Alteryx as well. So these are good data visualization tools. That's on the technical side. But then, of course, whatever tools you have, the most important aspect is about storytelling and what the data says. So presentation and interpersonal skills, there is no match to that. So you need to have that kind of skills as well, so that you can, and that comes with experience and with I would say more practice. So that's those are the aspects, and I would say technical and software aspects which needs to be there. And of course, for an entry level position, of course, technical aspects is the prerequisite, of course, followed by, you can say, interpersonal skills will be developed as time goes.
We've had a question from the audience that I'd like to follow up with. Everybody's mentioned, and we're going to get to the soft skills, Vish, because I'm a big proponent of the soft skills personally. But someone from the audience has asked about level of proficiency with the Python and SQL and things like that. They understand, that the skills need to be there. They're just trying to get a handle on what level of proficiency they should expect to have when they start out.
Well, depending upon the role, I would say the level of proficiency varies. But if you're asking an entry level, we would expect an intermediate level Python skills or SQL skills, right? You should be able to retrieve data, do basic data cleaning, and understand what's required for that role at least, right? So intermediate level should do the job.
Okay. Anyone else want to weigh in on that subject? Or are we good?
Yeah, I
So,
think. Yeah, Sunny, go ahead, please.
Okay, fine. Thank you. So I think on the Python side, even if you are comfortable with the three libraries like pandas, numpy, and the matplotlib, okay. So it is mostly to play around with the data. You need pandas. Then to play around with the number statistics, you need a numpy. And for the charting and visualization, you need a matplotlib. If you are comfortable with the basic syntaxes, okay, and you are able to play around with those libraries, you should be comfortable to get an entry level knowledge for that. Okay, and Python is an open-ended generic language, so you can do multiple things, like you can application programming and web development. But we are talking about the data analytics here only, whether you are able to extract the data and sort data, clean the data, and get something written out of it. And speaking of SQL, you can, if you are able to extract the data set and again, do the same thing like sorting, filtering, what you can do in the Excel, if you are comfortable doing in the SQL and the Python, then you should be good. Then you can put it on your resume for, sending it forward.
Vish, did you have something you wanted to add?
Oh yeah, I mean, most of them I've covered. Just I would like to add that it's the functionality of these tools which is important for achieving the end state. So if you have just given a raw data, and if you need to apply certain filters, what functionalities in Python will do that? That's where that kind of thinking is something is required. Now it cannot be at a basic level, but yes, intermediate is something I would say is a good place to start with.
Thank you. There's a question from the audience about whether we believe that a specific educational background is necessary to pursue the FRM. Now, if I remember correctly from the bios, Sagar is a mechanical engineering student, correct? But now I apologize, Vish, Sunny, that I don't remember what you studied previously besides your graduate degree. Were you both business students? And do you think, do you agree that you don't need a specific educational background?
I think I can answer that. I am a commerce graduate, in accounting and economics. So most of the people, I don't know how many people are there, but we got some 800 odd registrations. And I'm sure there are some of those hiding out saying that I'm a BCom student, FRM, quantitative analysis, not my cup of tea. This is exactly what my view was. Okay, the moment quantitative analysis comes and people start getting this shivers that, probability. Okay, you know what? It's another COVID fever. But honestly, honestly, doesn't matter what kind of background you are. It's important. The only difference between an engineering student and a commerce graduate student like me, uh, who has been out of touch with mathematics as such, I think that the only fundamental difference is the time lag. I mean, one needs to appreciate the fact that, if you are out of touch with mathematics, you need to practice, and mathematics can only be learned through practice. We can't read it, right? Unlike other studies. So that's the only difference. And I mean, that this is my practical experience, and I passed out, 4 months back in Feb 2022. So, my experience is as fresh as last 2 years. So
Okay.
there is no bottom line. I mean, there is no need for any particular academics. If you have done maths, great. You will take less time. If you haven't done, you are going to take some more time as far as you are able to practice it.
Okay, now I need to hear from our mechanical engineering student who went from a very technical background to risk management.
Yeah, so like Vish mentioned, I would agree. Specifically, you don't have to be from finance, or let's say, there are two aspects here. One is finance and all the markets, products. Mostly people get to learn those in maybe MBA, BCom, places like this. And the other aspect is math and all the analytical skills, right? So things like this, people get to learn more, I should say, in engineering when you do a lot of math and stuff. So this is kind of a collaboration between two. So I would say I found it a little bit difficult initially to understand finance concepts, right? Math was like not very difficult for me, honestly speaking, but given I'm an engineer. I should say this is the kind of thing, right? For example, we should have found a little bit more time to, get used to the math and other things. But similarly, right, you get to be in both the places, but yeah, one will take more time and the other should be fine, so you can balance it well. So yeah, I think background really doesn't matter as long as you're interested and that is where you want to go.
Okay. So following up on that then, how long would you estimate that you studied for the exam? There's a question from the audience about how much time they're going to need to dedicate.
Okay, so I remember even I did my FRM along with my work. So with that, I took almost 18 months to finally get my certification. So that's how much I've spent, in terms of time. If you ask me specifically, like, in hours, I should say maybe somewhere around 600 to 800 hours of study should have gone into it. Yeah, that's how much I've spent.
Vish, how many hours did you spend, do you think, since you're the most recent?
Yeah, I mean, I started exactly 2 years back, part one, on this very date, in May, uh, for November 2020, part one exam. And I studied almost every day, 2 to 2.5 hours, Monday to Friday. Saturday, Sunday, given that it was, I don't work on weekends, so it was 6 hours max on Saturday and Sunday, max initially. Uh, and towards the exam, last 1 month, I took 2 weeks off because that's recommended. You get into that real exam mode, and those last 2.5 3 weeks, I would say it was approximately 8 9 hours a day practicing questions, because you need to practice a lot. And that was on part one. After part one, I had the option to appear in May 2021, but I realized, especially if my work commitments are a little higher during April. So I thought there is no point in enrolling, and then, it doesn't make any sense. So I opted for December 2021. And, every day, 1 2 hours I used to study. Weekend was 3 or 4 hours, not 6 hours. But I started almost from February last year. So that continuous rhythm was there. I mean, I was not out of touch. Of course, 1 or 2 weekends sometimes here and there we used to, because after lockdown we really like, I have my daughter as well, so we used to go out on weekends sometimes. So those barring couple of weekends here and there, uh, the most important factor was Monday to Friday, getting that 2 hour touch with the book. That was important. So yeah, that helped a lot.
Sunny, what about you? I know we were talking about you studying, and that was one of the things so that you could do it while you worked. You have an estimate on how much time you spent?
Yeah, because when I started, I had no background of the syllabus at first. Okay, so I actually like the syllabus very much. So because of the the products I'm working with in the bank, and I get to learn how it is structured, how the risk management is done for those product derivative products. So it was quite interesting for me. And even though GAP says 300 hours are sufficient, but I put 600 hours. And I had that kind of confidence. Okay. But with that, I had that kind of confidence that, I can, I'll crack this exam. Now I have to go for the first quartiles. And I was able to get the, except the first theory part. Okay. In book 2, 3, and 4, I was able to get the first quartile. So that kind of confidence I had. Yeah. So I would say, yeah, you had to put the efforts. You have to do a lot of practice, but it is beneficial for you only in the future, because it's not like the once you crack the exam, okay, it ends there only, because the knowledge we will get during the study is going to be forever.
Okay. I can tell our audience that our exit survey that we send out after every exam, the candidates' estimates of how long they study range anywhere from 200 hours, which is very impressive, to 800 hours. There's a very broad range, and I think that depends in part. And gentlemen, jump in if you disagree. Part of it may be, what is it you're doing for work? You know what I mean? Like, if you're actually doing this, some of it comes back to you, or you're already working with it, so it becomes a little easier. The other consideration, I think, is I do find a lot of graduate students tend to skew on the lower end of the studying because they're already in that study mode. They remember how to read a 50-page chapter and retain it. Whereas when you've been working for a number of years, that's always something to be considered. Let me see. I'm checking our questions from our audience. Some of them. Okay. Well, here's actually questions. Generally speaking, would you say we have someone in the audience who has their MBA and work experience that's not related to risk management, but is interested in the field? And would you say that would it make sense, in your opinion, for them to look into the FRM, or they mentioned climate change, the SCR certificate, but they've already got their graduate degree and they have been working? Would you gentlemen recommend it?
I think yes, because if he or she is interested in uh, entering into risk management, FRM is a great, it gives you a good platform of understanding the entire risk management and each components of risk. And I would strongly recommend that in part 2, where we have got individual risk, in detail, uh, one can actually think about, and that's what I did, that which area of risk is my personality, or what kind of risk is something what I want to take my career into. Like, for example, I don't want to go to credit risk. So I read the chapters, I understood everything, but then that is not something what I want to do. Liquidity risk fascinates me. So I went above and beyond studying that, talking to so many treasury folks, many facets of daily work, etc. So that's something helps in building the network within, and even if it is not in risk at this point of time, but there are so many platforms available to connect with, and that's exactly the beauty of this entire forum is, right? We have got so many of connects from GARP who can help, and people who can make anyone understand what kind of day jobs are in a particular type of risk profile. So yeah, I mean, FRM is a good place to start.
Thank you. Here's a specific question to India, and you gentlemen are all on the ground there. Someone has inquired about how the FRM may help them, specifically future prospects. They're in the industry, they have work experience. Do any of you have any comment on whether you feel that this would aid their prospects within India, especially, because you're there? I think it would be very telling. Sagar, what do you think?
No, I mean, being in India, I did not still get the context. Is it from the perspective of Indian banks or generally working in India? If you ask from the context of the second item, that is working in India, of course, we have a lot of global banks and the financial institutions, insurance companies. I myself work in a global reinsurance company, right? So there are many organizations and prospects are always there. In fact, we sometimes find it so difficult to hire a particular candidate because we don't find the right skill sets, right? The ones that we mentioned at the beginning of the call. So we find it very hard, although there are many jobs openings. You can see even the LinkedIn, you can see many risk management jobs. Most of them requires FRM. The reason why they specify FRM is the kind of syllabus that it covers. So if given you do that, definitely there are prospects, and within India as well as across the globe.
See, you must have seen my other question about international job roles. So you've managed to answer that one at the same time. And actually, Vish, you're in Australia, so obviously you reflect the international applicability of the certification.
Yes, absolutely. And across Sydney, Singapore, in fact, Singapore government has announced. I don't know how many of people here are aware. Like Singapore government has announced that all the examination fees for FRM will be reimbursed by the government for those candidates who are successfully passing the course. So that itself shows how much the government is emphasizing this particular course. Along with that, of course, New York is absolutely, you've got so many risk jobs, and the most important aspect these days is majority of the banks are in the phase of transformation, transforming their finance, transforming their risk organizations. So there is a credible amount of work which is going around in Australian banks, uh, across US, majority of the US banks as well. So there is huge demand for people who are having this kind of certification, not only on core risk as such, but there is a separate vertical of risk and control within finance, within the chief administrative office, uh, within business risk as well, the first line of defense roles. I think there is the huge emphasis is placed on these kind of roles, and I'm sure that people who have FRM would be able to do good job in these roles. So yeah, I think it's an interesting time for everyone.
Thank you. Here's an interesting question that's come from the audience, and I'm going to start with Sunny. What do you think are the top 5 foreseeable risks after COVID that you feel, financial organizations are going to be facing?
So first, I believe it would be the continuity of the business. Definitely, majority of the operations and the work has been outsourced to the like many of the operations are outsourced in India. Okay, so definitely when like pandemic like the COVID happens. Okay, so it's a risk for everybody. It's not like the work can be done from the one places only. It is risky for the India as well. Even the outseas firms as well have the problems. So that kind of problems I can see, and I think so. Probably I am able to recognize only one only, and
That's okay.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sagar.
I think climate risk will be one of the biggest risks coming because I myself I'm working on climate financial risk currently. I'm in the phase where we are developing scenarios for different scenarios, right, for climate risk, and we are simulating and trying to understand what could be our losses. So this is one big risk that I see, and climate change is really a big thing, and it's already happening. So that's definitely there on the list. The second thing would be a bit of credit risk. I should see, given the current situation between Russia and Ukraine. So we are also seeing a bit of credit risk on a higher side, I should say, and a lot of repricing is also happening in the market risk side. So we are seeing derivatives priced very aggressively as compared to what we used to see before. Also, the COVID has brought in some of these aspects into pricing as well. So I think these are the three things that I see main risks.
Fish, what about you?
Two important things which COVID has brought up. First is resiliency, and within resiliency, I will talk about cyber risk, and that's something which is not so regulated as such, but there is no escape from that. And how an organization, banks and financial institutions can be more resilient. That's something which is conversations are happening across the board. How much budget should be allocated to resiliency and cyber risk? So that's something which is the heated discussion in across the board. And second is model risk. I think model risk emerged very important. It used to always exist in credit risk management side, where loss model, reserves forecast, all these used to be very well governed. But that entire model risk umbrella has been extended to finance, stress testing, capital planning, processes as well, which are yet to be evolved. So there is a huge emphasis on model risk, model validation, model review, governance around model, because regulators, of course, all US banks, Fed, OCC, uh, even Singapore Monetary Authority, uh, Hong Kong Monetary Authority, everyone here, even in Sydney, the regulators, they are very, very much interested into understand what kind of governance do the banks have for their models, which actually are forecasting, and based on that, business decisions are made. So I think these two are very important themes, which significant investments are being made by financial institutions, and there is a huge potential for growth for people who want to develop their career in these aspects, in these roles, basically.
Thank you. I'm sorry, did someone want to follow up?
Yeah, on the vicious topic actually, that brings a model risk. Okay, because the automation, the way automation is taking place in the future, definitely most of the tradings will be algorithmic trading, and happens on the model basis only. And suppose something goes wrong, then definitely it would be become a huge loss for the bank as well, definitely. Then their regulators are also into that, for to apply, have a kill switch to whether the model does the over trading for today, for the particular day. Then for that aspect as well, definitely the model risk, I would say it is a good thing to see as a career aspect as well, and it should be look upon in the future.
Thank you. What part of the question actually, and I'd like to answer this if I may, is about how the FRM and SCR might equip people to manage the risks that you've all so eloquently pointed out. To be honest, the SCR itself was developed because of climate change, as a risk and how it drives financial risk. Most people can see, if I am a commercial property owner in, I don't know, Miami, for example, that you can be exposed to climate risk because of storms, but there are other considerations that people may or may not think about. And so that is why the SCR was in fact developed. And with some of the topics that you've all pointed out for the FRM, again, I want to let our audience know that We survey every 3 years people who work in industry to gauge where the knowledge base needs to be, things of that nature, in order to make sure that our curriculum does stay current and applied, and things of that nature. So AI, machine learning that you guys mentioned earlier is covered in our current issues, cybersecurity, and we've recently updated the operational risk and resiliency section in part 2, which also tends to be very applied. So just to finish up that particular question. Here's an interesting one. You all work in the field, and I hope I know the answer to this, but do any of you believe that age would be a barrier if someone wanted to switch from an unrelated field to risk management? I mean, would you all be willing to consider a more mature hire in your departments?
I don't think the age would be the barrier. The barrier would be the how much time you are, how much free time you have apart from your work and family, what kind of obligations you have. Apart from that, if you are able to get the free time out of it, then definitely you can do it. It's not, age is not the barrier, won't be the barrier.
Okay. Anyone else? Vish?
Like I have my study, one of the study partners, he was 52, and we both gave FRM part 2 together. So while studying, it was not a problem for him. And I think this question, of course, is for employment, I believe, or I believe, taking somebody in a risk management job. I don't think there is any. I mean, in today's era, age is, nobody even asks age. I don't think so.
I would hope so. There was a follow-up question. Actually, this is probably directed to me. There are programs. Did any of you, actually, I will ask any of you, we have a network of approved exam prep providers who have created various support materials, study aids, study guides, things of that nature, to help candidates prepare for their exam. Did any of you use any kind of prep company or prep materials to help you study?
So along with GARP's material, I did use Kalpin Schweizer's materials. Yeah, it was more like supplementary, not like
Okay. Vish, Sunny, did either of you use a prep provider?
Yeah.
Yes, I
Same,
did.
same.
I did used, given that I had a limited quants knowledge, so I used one of the authorized GARP prep providers for part 1, and for part 2, of course, there is one more prep provider in United States. So again, a GARP approved prep provider. So yeah, it helped me to practice questions, but then of course the core reading, I used GARP textbook as well, because what I found is, although you have these, prep providers provide notes, etc., but the essence of the entire, the textbook and the knowledge, what is there in the textbook, it gets diluted when somebody writes in his or her own thought process. So initially I found, okay, it is very easy to learn, but then I started, figuring out that, there are many information which gets diluted, and those are critical information. So, it was a rework for me after almost a month of, using the material. So then I realized, let's stick to the material by the institute, and that way we are safe.
Okay, Sunny, what about you?
So I feel because the GARP material is very very descriptive actually. It was so if I want to crack the interview, definitely I will go for the GARP material. But if I want to study for the exam perspective, okay, I want to clear this exam, definitely I will be going towards the Kalpan Schweizer's, okay, because it was easier compared to GARP, because GARP has more things to talk about. Okay, it has very detailed. It is very detailed in nature. It is good actually, good for the long term. Okay, if you have ample of time, then definitely you should go with the institute material only. Okay, but for the level 1, I had to use the choices, but in level because the syllabus was very vast, if you know, and it is good, but for the if you want, I wanted to, I actually took help of multiple you know multiple materials to clear the level 2 exams, because the many a times you'll find you cannot rely on only one material if you don't understand the stuff, definitely. So you can go on YouTube as well, you can search as much as you want, but once you understood, then definitely I think you should not rely on only one material, okay, because it is more about the if you understand the topic or not, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I used to work on the FRM exam development team, so I'm going to provide my study tip for the audience. The Learning Objectives is a free download from our website, and it breaks down the FRM curriculum, every chapter, what we want you to know. Every exam question must track to one of those learning objectives. If it doesn't track to a learning objective, we don't allow it to occur in the exam. So for each chapter, we tell you what you need to know. And if you understand each of those topics, each of those learning objectives, that's where the questions come from. The subject matter experts that we have help us write items to place, because they give really good industry context. I don't know if any of you gentlemen have been contacted to be a item writer, but we do engage with people who work in industry to have our questions, be realistic, not just theoretical. And then we have an exam development team that makes sure that it's a fair and good question. We are getting close to the end of our hour, so I'm going to ask you a two-part question. I'm going to ask you each, what do you find most rewarding about your current work in risk management? And two, one piece of advice for the audience. So I'm going to start with Sagar. What do you find most rewarding? And give the audience one little tip before we go.
Okay, so the most rewarding thing is that I'm working in some area that I really like working. The kind of challenging task that you get to handle in risk management is really great, and that is something that keeps me going. Because if at work things become mundane, I kind of start losing interest in that, and then that's it. That is where I cannot do. But in risk management, it kind of doesn't get that way, right? You will get to see different challenges, different things coming up every single day, and that is what is more rewarding for me, the learning aspect, I should say. And sorry, Lisa, your second question, please.
One parting tip for the audience.
Okay, so one tip I would say anybody who's interested in risk management is to, uh, focus on understanding the subject, because this FRM is not like any other exams. You cannot think like, I can just read a book a week before and go simply give my exam. That no, that's not possible. If that is in your mind, please don't give that exam at all, I would say. So if you really want to succeed in this exam, give proper time, understand the concepts very thoroughly, because the questions are so practical in nature. You will find it difficult, definitely. It is not what you read that directly comes in the exam. It's the application of what you read that comes in the exam. So unless and until you understand it, it would be very difficult for you to crack and succeed in this exam. So yeah, that's it from my side.
Thank you. Sunny, what do you find most rewarding about your job? And what is your one tip for the audience?
Yeah. So when I was in operations, okay, so definitely I had mundane work, same thing over and over again. You'll do the same thing, and I have noticed the difference between the operations and the risk management. Okay, so you have to have more mechanical skills. Okay, your typing speed should be faster, you should be able to read faster emails. Okay, even though if you don't understand the more of the stuff, it is okay, but you have to be quick, and you have to make good decisions. Okay, it's about the operations. But when you come into risk management, it is more about the how your brain works. Okay, not about how much fast your hand, or the how much fast you read. Okay, so definitely I like my job, definitely, and it is more challenging as well. Okay, on the day on day basis, I get the surprises, and whatever is happening in the market, I can totally see in my work happening. Okay, suppose the interest rate rising, or the FX movements, so I can see in my work, okay, it is happening, okay, because of that, the exposure has been decreased or increased. So I like that kind of job definitely. And the tip for the students, okay, would be, so like it should be like, once you have decided if you want to appear for the exam, definitely, okay, you should go for it, okay. You don't worry about it, even the 4 months or 3 months, 4 or 5 months should be efficient to crack a single level, okay. And yeah, so I think you should be quick, about taking the decisions. Like for me, okay, it was like I was not sure whether I would be able to crack the level 1 in the 6 months or not, along with my job, okay. So that time I discussed with my subordinates, my manager, even my dad, okay. They said me one thing, okay, if you have started the studying, if you like the syllabus, go for it, don't even think about it, okay, and you'll make it. And what is the point of studying the risk management if you don't take the calculated risk?
I like that. All right,
Yeah,
Vish,
so
take us
yeah,
home.
yeah, so I did it. So I took the risk. I managed to get to level 1. Then again on the next 6 months, I was able to crack the level 2. So it was a good thing for me. Yeah.
Go ahead, Vish. Take us home. What do you got?
So, I think the good part of my role is the dynamic nature. Not a single day, or not even within the day, things are, the same. So each day is very different. Something blows up. We don't even know what's. We anticipated this, so that's the dynamic thing, which kicks me every day and keeps me motivated so far for 15 years now. And then the tip, or I would say the success factor, particularly for FRM, those who want, after watching this webinar, I believe you will be motivated enough to enroll. I think the most important aspect is have a study plan, and as Lisa mentioned, make sure you learn the learning objectives first. Take a glance of the entire syllabus. Like I did that for part 1, part 2. I had a very robust study plan, which breaks down the entire day into hours, so that I know where my hours are going, and that helps me. It has always helped me. So I think study plan is important. You make yourself accountable for, and then I don't think there will be any problem with respect to not passing, or not knowing. Uh, yeah, that's my only tip.
Okay. Well, gentlemen, thank you. We have reached the end of our hour, and I so appreciate all of you taking time out of your busy days to join us. For those of you, if your question wasn't answered, I did put an email address in the Q&A bar on the chat function. You may certainly forward your question, and we will be sure to get to it. And again, I appreciate your time. If there's other questions, please feel free to check out our website, and thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Glad to be part of this webcast. Yeah.
Thank you.